Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
I got to change that jingle. You know why?
Why?
Because I need some funk in the house. That's what I need. I think
Is that why?
I need some funk in the house. I'm just feeling a little bit feisty this morning. You know, we're actually taking photos as we speak. Loda Hadley's in the room in the house, right, Loda? Good morning, Loda. She's taking a couple. Hi, Loda. But she didn't hear you, but that's okay. How you doing this morning, John Beerley? In 4 foot of snow, and
doing very well. Adrian, Ethan, how are you guys?
Have you dug your horse out yet?
Good.
Yes. Actually, we've had a real. Our weather here is so weird. We've had like a huge kind of warm snap. It's going to be in the high 50s by this weekend.
Ooh, that's warm.
Listen, for us this time of year, that's luxury, man.
I know. I'm just like,
that's
wow.
Tahiti weather.
You'll be out in your shorts. It's like somebody in England, actually. They're at bathing suits when the sun comes out.
People do that all the time.
What about you, Ethan? Are you in your shorts yet?
No.
No?
No, I'm not.
Actually, you've got your... what would you call that scarf on you? I like that scarf.
It's a Mid-Eastern combat scarf, basically.
But how's your back, by the way? Because
Terrible.
well, gosh. Well, should we not mention your back?
No.
I don't want to tell anybody about your back, but we are live on radio.
Yeah, thank you.
Just thought I'd mention it. Anyway, of course, this morning we are going to continue our focus on education. We have our service tablet initiative that will bring 90 new tablets into needy classrooms. It's now underway. We are about to get all the submissions coming in. Voting for the winning 9 classrooms will occur February 1st to February 3rd. We will be announcing that everywhere so you can get in on the action and vote for your best collage or best presentation. I think Loda's got her hand up for something. What was that, Loda?
I have just one thing to say.
Just one thing. Say one thing. I want you to say one thing.
I grew up in a household with a mother who was a single parent, 5 kids, sent herself back to school. And I think that, in another participation in this education thing, it's not all schools, it's not all, what materials you don't have. My mother, her standards were B or better. C was not good enough. So some responsibility goes on to me, the parent of the people that are disenfranchised or have less money, as to demanding a better education for their kids and actually, making sure that they do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is there isn't a different way though, Loda. Sit down a second. I don't want since you brought that up, I'm going to address that because I think you're very right in that it is the parents that do it, but it's the manner the parents do it in, because not all kids are going to be equal. Some kids need you need to do this, and you need to do this now, and another one needs a different approach to do it. My son, for instance, he went into gymnastics yesterday, and they came out and went, "This is a different boy today than he normally." And she said, "Yeah, well, he's got more comfortable now, so therefore he trusts you a little better. Therefore, his approach, or the parent's approach to that individual child, has to be how that kid responds to it, so that they do get those B's and those A's that you're talking about."
Well, I'm just saying is, a lot of people say, "Oh, our schools don't have it," or our poor community, but it starts. For me, I grew up in the projects. It starts at home.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
First person, it starts at home. Your parent has to be into your education. I have a friend who started teaching in Compton, and she said the first week, the kids just kept, screaming, and then she had a kid throw a chair across the room, and I'm thinking she's teaching junior high school. This was 2nd grade, and then she called the parent in, and she says, "Are you going to call me for every little thing?" That's what I mean. It starts with the parent first.
Yeah. Well, it's the one thing is there are some parents that don't want to have children, and they have children, and therefore they are disinterested in their children's education and in their lives most of the time. There are other parents out there that need 2 jobs. Therefore, going out with 2 jobs, it's tough. How do you address those people that have those 2 jobs? What do you tell them from a situation where they come home, they get up early in the morning, they get late at night, they give the kids food, the kids have got to go to sleep? How do you encourage those children to actually, or the parents to help those children?
You figure out a way. My mother worked nights my entire life,
she managed to have kids that weren't in trouble. She would call up, she'd have to speak to everybody on the phone. If you said they were in the bathroom, she'd show up on random times and like check up on you. You have to do more. It just happens.
I think also the other thing is, do you schedule your day? I mean, that's one of the hardest things I think people do is they've got 15 projects they've got to do, whether it's going to the grocery store, going to the job, getting the kids lunch together, making sure they get I think sometimes we don't schedule enough saying, okay, this time we have to do this. Because I think people are much more prone when they have a goal. They've got like, okay, here's my day. My Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is this. And at least I have those things are set. I need to do these things at this time. You're more prone to do it because you have a goal set for yourselves. I mean, I don't know how you guys were. I mean, it's so hard, I think, sometimes to set goals because, or split your days up into segments so that you can actually accomplish many things rather than, oh, I forgot to do that. And I didn't give the kids reading this morning. Oh, I didn't make them the food. They can eat in the morning. Don't worry. I'll give them some chips and some crackers to take to school. But I think you have to schedule. Do you guys ever do that?
Ethan does. He sets like a certain goals during the day that he has to accomplish by the end, and like it says this, and this, and then I've done something.
Do you do that, Ethan, a lot?
I do that, yes.
Do you find it's more productive?
Well, I try to be as productive and high tempo as I can be anyway. So it's nice to know to prioritize what's important and start there and trying to get towards it. Yeah, I do feel I'm more productive that way.
We're talking about technology today and schools, and that is a portion of the day. I mean, a lot of kids spend a lot of time, parents don't have time, so they stick their kids in front of the TV or in front of a computer. And sometimes it's far better to what's the word? I don't want to say restrict, but the amount of time a child spends in front of a computer could be quite easily used in another way, which is like, okay, they've got books to read. Why don't you find out? There's so much on the internet that you could find out about a topic you're learning in school, whether you're 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old, rather than spending time playing Minecraft or some other video game of some sort.
I know I'm not a big video game person, like, at all. I don't play them. I kind of discourage Sean from being on the computer all the time. To me, it's kind of takes away all the creativity in kids. It just, it takes away also the social aspect. The social aspect is horrible. Kids don't talk to each other. You can sit kids in a room sometimes and they won't even talk to each other. They'll text. They won't.
But, we live in a different world. I mean, I heard somebody say a couple of weeks ago, Facebook and Twitter, really, they're for old people. Old people, I mean people that are 25 years and over. Now it's Instagram and WeChat or whatever the other iChat and all the others. How do you address that when you're dealing with it's a different world, and we might not understand it, but kids that want to sit in front of the first person shooter games or that's a different world now. It's a whole different how do you address it?
Sean's not even allowed to go on social media. She has nothing. She has a page that her dad created for her that she can tell him things to put on it, and he does it. She's not even allowed on social media. All of her friends are talking about,
she has an editor.
iChat.
Well, that's not a bad idea, actually. You've got somebody that actually edits the things that go on the internet.
She doesn't need it, but I primarily edit what comes in, not what goes out from her. But I try to regulate any kind of social media craziness that may incur.
We are doing this technology push this month, and it's clear that high quality education, it's a common value everybody shares in the United States, but a lot of people lack. And access to good education it's important for grade kid schools, and as it is for students seeking a college degree. So we want to make sure that they get that ability to do that. I just wanted to put some facts out there about technology in education, just so that we understand that there are as much as 60% of schools in America issue laptops or tablets to their students. 60% of schools. I didn't realize that was so high now. I mean, I've seen it in my daughter's school, but that's kind of a high number. 41% of students are in favor of taking virtual classes. Mm-hmm. And the funny, because I actually spoke to somebody, I was in a meeting yesterday, they're a software developer, etc., and they said, wow, when I was a kid, kid, I couldn't go on the internet and do my classes. That's so much easier to do. And I said, yes. But a lot of the time when you take something that is new, like the internet, I mean, it's relatively new. It's past 15 years, really, that we've really become internet junkies. And what happens is we go totally that way rather than having a balance of actually taking the books into school as well as the internet. You've got school studies to do. Okay, you can do them online. Great. But you need to look at it physically. It's a motor function. It's your eyes. Computer's a different motor function than it is reading a book. And I think
I agree with that.
Don't you agree with that, John?
I do, and I think a lot of the learning experience for me, I mean, I think back to a lot of my literature classes in college. There's really something to be said for being in the room with your professor, with the fellow students, having an energetic conversation, and the learning comes from the energy of that conversation building off of everyone being involved with it and a part of it. And I just can't imagine the quality being the same if you were taking it in a virtual classroom, whether it's just an online course or if you are, Skyping in. I just feel like being in the room and being there is more, is just more beneficial. I think that technology in any situation should be a tool rather than a crutch or a replacement.
Right. I mean, that said, the internet is a fantastic, as you said, John, tool for us to be using. Now, it says that basically that students that study on computers, phones, or tablets study for an average 40 minutes more per week than those who do not. That's an added thing, as long as they're not on social media, their Twitter programs, their Instagram, their Facebook, their chats or whatever. And you've got more than 60% of parents support the fact that technology has increased students' engagement, provided personalized learning, and improved home-to-school communication. That's by Education Tech Review, by the way.
Yeah, and 87% of parents say that effective implementation of technology is important for their child's success. 50% label it as extremely important from the same study.
Right, but I think as we just said, we have to be very clear. Yes, we can. We can't just shove that off. Oh, right. Great, go on the internet and just learn that, because I think that's the danger. I think when you go from one end to the next, the danger is that you lose something that you had before. It's like eating at the table. We now, as a society, sit down. You talked a minute about the kids tweeting. I've seen it and I've done it. I know. You sit at the table and you get a call, you get a text, and you start replying to the text instead of engaging the person in front of you. There are people sitting around the table. There are 4 people around the table. They're on their phones.
I have seen my older kids did that before. They were texting, and I'm thinking they're having conversations with other people, and they were having conversations with each other. Texting. I was like, if you don't put that phone down.
But it's true. I've heard that before. I've heard that several times, that people are talking to each other around a table. How do you improve? The eye-to-eye contact, and that does go a long way later on in socialization. And how do you think, and this is a question for all the viewers, do you think in the future we're just going to talk virtually and not talk person to person? It's impossible unless we become ethereal beings. That's not going to happen for another 1,000 or 200,000 years, the way this world is going. And so we have to be able to communicate and express our ideas through word of mouth and thought. How many times do you actually write something? And I think, Ethan, you said it the other day. I can't remember. You write something and the humor or the things that no, actually it was a friend of mine. He said, what I was trying to say sarcastically doesn't come through.
There's no sarcasm emoji.
You can't do that. Do you know what I mean? You can't get that nuance you can in the natural voice.
And also, too, what it does is it desensitizes kids, because that's why you have like a higher rate of bullying on internet, a higher rate, because they do not engage with human beings. They're doing it on social media and on the internet, so therefore they can't.
There's no emotional reaction.
Yeah, there's nothing.
There's no emotional reaction. They don't know what they're doing. Sometimes I think some of the things that go out there, they do it, but they don't say the emotional reaction, so they don't care about it. Mm-hmm. They have, once they're told, they said, I didn't mean that, and that's not what I meant. And all of a sudden you've created a problem where there shouldn't have been one if you said that face to face. Now, instructional materials do allow for better self-paced learning. It's a fact. Students are able to go as fast or as slow as they please when they're going over content. So that's a good point. If a student has learning disability, the curriculum can be self-paced so that student is going at a rate where they can understand and truly grasp the material. That is a good point. I mean, when you were in school, Lloyd, I mean, was kids in class, some kids don't learn as fast as others. So a teacher's going over material, he's got 20, 30 kids in front of him, and not all of them are going to get it. What happens to those kids that don't?
That's true, but this is the thing. If you have a kid and you need to have him on the computer to learn, or he has a disability that prevents him from learning in the same pace, then you have restrictions on the other end, and parents can do that with all the other stuff that will distract him from the tool that you're providing him to learn.
Right, and that's what we want to do with the LAUSD program, the laptops, is give them a tool that they can utilize to improve their education, not substitute it. Right. So it's a helping hand. That's what the whole program is about. We're trying to make sure that we're not substituting something. We're giving something as a hand up, not a hand out. Let's just talk a little bit about the benefits of technology and learning. I mean, there is, adapting to a new technology in a classroom takes some time, and that's another thing that we've talked about with the LAUSD program. Is that a lot of the time people say, "Oh, here's a bunch of computers. Thank you. Go ahead," and nobody knows how to use them. So it's going to take time to learn them. We're going to have Chad Hawthorne, who's our technology advisor, coming with me on February 6th, I believe it is. February 6th, to the schools to actually teach the teachers the technology so that they can give it to the children. So it does take time, and although it can improve focus and boost students' self-esteem, not to mention valuable skills such as fast, accurate typing and use of online search engines and trustworthy sources of research. It does that, but it's difficult to underfunded schools to find the resources to bring that technology in. And I think that's what's important. I think we all deserve technology and the ability to use it, but us out there, I would like this program to continue in this year or the following year with other technology companies out there, such as Apple or Microsoft or Dell or anybody else that would say, "I think this is a great program. We're able to do this. We're actually creating a program where it's not just I'll give you the bunch of stuff. We're creating a program to teach and give a boost to the kids so that later on, what do you think they're going to be using? Dell and Apple and Microsoft computers because they learned on those."
Right. Well, and we, and again, my personal opinion is that I would love to see technology used as, like you said, a tool and not a crutch. It does have the opportunity to expand instructional materials and the availability and quality of instructional materials beyond what a teacher's wildest dreams would have been 20 years ago. The possibilities are endless for the types of materials that are made available by technology, whether it's technology available through the internet, as we talked about before, software that can be purchased by the school district. These resources are expanding and becoming better and better with each passing year due to people who are passionate about incorporating that technology into the learning process.
It's true that when you basic findings show that you learn better when you're actually engaged in something rather than it passes over you. Like being in a school and you don't understand it, you're not going to learn it because you just passed over. You weren't engaged in that subject, and that actually, as they become more digitally literate, it allows kids to actually be engaged in whatever it is they're learning online. So I think that's a very good thing. I mean, the shift in worldwide computer usage and the need for computer skills in today's workforce is pushing the United States government to create guidelines, even, such as the core curriculum content standards for educators to ensure that students are prepared to meet the demands of the 21st century, which we talked about last week when we were talking about the workforce in 2020, 2030, that there will be so many jobs out there, but if our kids are not engaged and learning now, there won't be a skilled workforce to supply those jobs. And then that will be an economic disaster. So, can we change? Does technology change the way children think? Yeah, apparently an article in the Psychology Today says that the use of technology can alter the actual wiring of the brain. More than a third of children under the age of 2 use mobile. What's that? More than a third of children under the age of 2 use mobile media.
Well,
I had to read that again.
It's the truth. I've seen.
Oh my goodness!
I've seen children grab their parent's cell phone, know how to get to their programs on YouTube.
Oh, my son does that too, and my daughter.
Already.
We stopped them. I mean, my daughter's like, what's your password to your phone? I'm like, I'm not giving you the password to my phone. They already know the password to my wife. So that's enough. You know how to get on the iPad. That's enough. We always hide it, but, if they got it in their hands, they know how to get it. But under the age of 2, for goodness sake. And apparently that number increases as children's age, with 95% of teens from 12 to 17 spending time online, which is good and bad. Time spent with technology doesn't give the kids newfangled ways of doing things. It just changes the way their brains work. And that's what I was talking about before with the motor functions. Your brain is now wired differently because you're solely using the internet rather than broadening it out and using internet and something else, going out and playing football or soccer or something else, and then coming home and doing some work. Because the minute you disengage in different things, don't you find that people learn better? I mean, I think, and the study we've talked about before is how kids in Finland, for instance, get a 45-minute recess rather than a 20-minute recess or 15-minute recess here in the United States, which allows them to be much more focused when they return to the classroom. It's not time wasted. It's actually time well spent because their focus is now on what they're going to be learning. So to be able to change things up is, I think, a key thing.
Can also change the way a child feels. Using technology has been found to affect a child's ability to empathize. They had a study on 2 groups of 6th graders that found that kids with no access to an electronic device for 5 days were better at picking up on emotions and nonverbal cues and photos and faces than the group that used their devices during that time. That increased face-to-face interaction that the test group had made the students more sensitive to, again, just the nuances of just that basic human expression and communication.
Which is what we talked about a minute ago, which is doing that human face-to-face. That nuance is, she's sad, she's angry, he's upset, he's happy, there's something wrong with him. You don't get that from a photo all the time. You can't. No. That change doesn't happen unless you're in front of somebody.
Well, and the overuse of technology also affects not only the child's ability to pick up on the mood of others, but it affects the child's own mood as well. There was a study in the United Kingdom that revealed that kids who use computer games and home internet for more than 4 hours don't have the same sense of well-being as those who use technology for less than an hour a day. One expert explained that because of less physical content, children have difficulty developing those social skills and emotional reactions.
We're talking about the good and the bad. I mean, why did you take, just out of the general, you guys, Ethan and Lotta here, why did you take your kid off social media, for instance?
She never was allowed
She was never on it.
Yeah, but why were you not, I know she was never on it, but like right now you said, okay, she's got a page and we're vetting it. But why, I mean, because there are the dangers of the internet in many different ways. What was your reason?
Before she even... she's 13 now.
Kids are knuckleheads.
She got a cell phone. There were kids at her school who were in this awful
a lot of
textbook.
Kids in like the 4th, 5th, 6th grade and stuff had horrible experiences, with sort of misguidance of text messaging, if you will. And I didn't want her, who's quite not innocent, but polite and kind, to get caught up in some kind of quagmire of that. So number one, I wanted to make sure I was sort of a security barrier for the people that preferred. I tell her now, I prefer you to speak to people versus use your text messages, and tell all your friends that texting is not how you should communicate. And that way, there's a lot more. Well, there is exactly what we're talking about. There's a lot more human interaction, and she's less likely to kind of get into some misinterpreted sort of angry engagement. So I didn't want her on social media because of the way first of all, she doesn't really need it except for her charity work. And she can do all that through us, who are better social media filters, per se.
Because they actually do say that 20... I mean, you talked about it a minute, but 3rd and 4th and 5th graders would use it. I mean, the bullying factor is actually a quarter of the kids in school actually say that they've been bullied either by text or online. I mean, it's a fact out there. And then there's the other issue, which is sex offenders. 82% of them find their victims, if you like, online. They've
pretending to be peers.
Correctly, pretending to be somebody else, and then that happens. So I think that's why keeping it in school is a good thing, and that's gauging it as to where you actually put social media, or should I say computers and technology, and guiding your children, much like you would guide them across the street. Would you let your child just walk across the street without your help? No parent in their right mind would say, let's cross the street, you go over there and I'll let... No, it's the same thing. Exactly the same thing. You're allowing your child access to something that is harmful and beneficial at the same time, and it's the parents' job to guide them in that journey.
We just had a local story of a 12-year-old girl who was courted by a 21-year-old man online. He picked her up from school, and luckily her parents called her phone number, and when her phone started ringing, the 12-year-old girl and the 21-year-old guy who picked her up freaked out. So he kicked her out of his vehicle and just went back home to his house. So she called the girl called her parents, who came to get her, and of course the police made a beeline to this guy's house and arrested him. But I mean, this kind of thing happens a lot.
But that's
Thankfully in this case no one was harmed.
But I mean, think about it though. Let's just talk about that situation. 21 years old.
Ridiculous.
Do you really? No, you say ridiculous, but do you really think they're really out of adolescence yet? Some people are not at that age. Therefore, for them to go to a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old in this particular case is not unusual. And that to me, it's wrong. Probably because he hasn't been taught the fundamentals. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know what he's been taught, but that would have been considered very unusual in my social circles when I was 21. When I was 21, I had a full-time job and I was married.
Agreed.
So, I mean, I had truck payments and the real life around you. And I think if one of us or one of my friends came up and said, hey, I've got this thing, I'm going to pick up this 12-year-old,
well, I mean,
that would have gone over very badly for him.
But remember, you're talking about your social area. I'm talking, there are many different, I mean, Lotta, you said you came from the projects. There is a lot of different, how can I say, views and opinions in different cultures as to what is right and what is not right. You still have underage girls being married off at age 12 to in India and different places where that arranged marriage is happening.
like 100 years ago, 50 years ago, that was normal.
It was normal, exactly. So that has not changed in some circles. So what was normal in your circle today for us is not necessarily normal to somebody else. So I think educating them is key, and obviously technology is one of the things we're talking about, but I think it's important to understand that I'm not condoning it, please don't get me wrong, but I'm saying we have to understand that the limitations online, there are people out there that don't see it as wrong and therefore find it perfectly normal to do things like that. So we have to teach our kids. I mean, that 12-year-old, for instance, John, I mean, what was she thinking? I mean, did her parents not mention this to her?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, let's talk. We got our Hero of the Week coming up. I just want to talk very briefly, since we are dealing with technology and teachers in that. We do have problems for teachers and technology because in many classrooms, the existing technologies are underused. But connected technology, which is the umbrella term for using computers, cell phones, and the internet to extract or share knowledge, is essential for helping students connect with resources and expand their critical thinking, communication, and collaboration skills. Now, we have a motivational speaker for education, Mark Prensky, who brought to light a dichotomy within the education that still exists for many teachers. Teachers who find technology to be somewhat of a foreign concept, digital immigrants, do not easily move through digital work environments or actively seek new tools and opportunities. Instead, they often translate digital work back into the analog format. This is what I was talking about between the difference between one age group and another. The teachers today, there's a crossover. The young teachers haven't quite gotten out there. The kids that are using technology for the past 15 years haven't quite yet become the teachers of 35, 40 years old yet. They are still the ones that were used to, like I was when I was a kid, writing things down. So now write it back down again. So therefore, communicating to their kids, they're not using the technology that is there. They're actually translating it back to the old format, which doesn't engage the kids because they're more interested or more used to using technology. So that's a problem that has to be ironed out. I wanted to just mention that very quickly. I think we have to get on to our Hero of the Week because I know we got John. Let's bring us up to date with that. We'll continue this if we have time, because again, as time flies on Peace on Radio, John, let me drop it to you.
It does. Well, it's always exciting, for us on this show when we get to go international. Last week we had Harry McCann, who called us from Ireland, our hero of the week. This week we are going to Berlin. Our hero of the week is Mozamel Aman, the Community Development Director for WeConnect, which you can find at weconnect.berlin. It's an organization that aims to connect refugees with local initiatives in Berlin through social activities in art, sports, music, food, and as we've been talking about this morning, education. Mozamel is joining us today to talk about his journey and to tell us how WeConnect is making a difference in Berlin and beyond.
Do we have Mozamel on the line?
Hey, hello.
Hello, Mozamel. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. What about you?
I'm pretty good. You're on with Peace on Radio this morning. Where are you? You're in Berlin?
I'm in Berlin, Reinickendorf, in my apartment.
And how old are you, Mozamel?
I'm 19 years old.
19. Okay. And I understand you came from Afghanistan, is that right, originally, as a refugee?
Yeah, that's pretty much right. I came to Afghanistan in 2014, in August.
Uh-huh.
It was basically a family reunion, so my father had to flee Afghanistan in 2012. He was working with the Afghan government, and because of so many reasons, he had to flee the country.
Uh-huh.
So he ended up after like 6 months in Berlin, in Germany, and it took him like 2 years to get recognized as a refugee, and all the legal stuff was done. And
what was your journey, in a sense, once he'd done the legal stuff and you were brought in? Were you just flown over? Did you have to? How did you get to Berlin?
Well, I mean, we were pretty much lucky. So in this journey, it was me and my family, which was like my mother and 2 brothers and 2 sisters. It was pretty much easy for us as we went to the German embassy in Afghanistan, and we got the visa and we came by air. But that's not a normal circumstances for a refugee fleeing a country like Afghanistan and coming all the way through to Europe or any other country.
Mm-hmm. We've actually talked in the past few months about the people call it the refugee crisis across Europe right now, and I know Germany's very much in the center of that. How do you see the refugee situation in Berlin, for instance, or in Germany itself? Has it changed a lot of things? Do you think that there is a good and bad situation in that? Because some people are legitimate and some are not.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, if you take the statistics and what the media has been saying is that Germany has hosted about 1 million or over refugees in the last 1 year. And Berlin has hosted so far like more than 50,000 refugees by itself. And of course, so it brings different things with itself. And at the beginning, there was this welcome culture. The doors were open, and everybody was saying refugees welcome. But now there are like this kind of mixed emotions among the public and perceptions, particularly once this accident in the Cologne happened. And this has changed the perception of the public about refugees in itself. But
what happened? Inform my viewers, what exactly happened in Cologne?
So there was this mass sexual assaults from the migrants or refugees, so to say, and on the New Year's Eve, and it was considered to be the bunch of 1,000 people attacking women. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you? I mean, obviously, it's a culture shock. I mean, why would you have? If you're going to another country, what do you think the reason for that was? Was it because they were not getting what they wanted? What was the reason why this happened?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I cannot imagine that what particularly the reason would have been, but. Of course, it's a matter of a culture as well. If you take an example of Afghanistan, there aren't such gatherings where there is no differentiation between if you are a male or if you're a female, you're all partying together or something. Or I don't know. I mean, what the reason would be, but of course, the culture is one of the issues that is different. And I am not pretty much aware on this topic.
What culture shock did you have when you first got into? Did you experience any culture shock when you arrived in Berlin?
For me personally, one of the things was that a lot of people are more connected into the social media than the normal social interaction people have. Personally, in Afghanistan, people tend to meet more personal than on being on the social media and having their own space, kind of, so to say.
Do you think? Because I was just talking about that a minute ago about the physical interaction between people and the online social media interaction. Do you think it's good or bad? I mean, what do you think are the differences from your point of view?
Well, I mean, yeah, it has both the good side and the bad side, of course, I would say. But the good side is that it's a easy way of communication, interacting with each other, sharing information, resources, and being connected virtually 24/7. I mean, you can be in contact and talk. But on the other side, for me personally, where I have been brought up, there people tend to communicate face to face, spend more time with the family, with the friends, gatherings So on this side, it was at the beginning a little bit complicated for me, but I think I have been integrated in the last 1.5 years.
So what made the transition easier for you?
Being like on these platform of the social media or use of, like, when I came here, of course I had Facebook back home, but I was not using it in many ways, just like the basic things. You have this newsfeed, but later on, okay, there are these Facebook groups, create pages, you can create events, and then okay, what's happening around you, and then going to different social media platforms. Like, for me, when I came here, I had no idea. I just what to do in terms of activities, what is out there. So I went to the internet and write in Google that what can you do with English? Of course, language was one of the barriers. I couldn't speak German, so I could speak English, and I typed there that, okay, if there's any event or an activity or something that can be done in English. So I went to one of the events. I found it through the internet, and to this event, when I went there, I saw that there were a lot of people doing great stuff. It was a kind of crowdfunding campaign of something. So I went to this event and I started talking to people, and almost everybody was speaking English. And I asked, okay, how to know more about such events? And somebody told me, okay, are you on meetup.com? Are you on Twitter? Are you on Facebook, LinkedIn? And I said, oh, that's so much.
So how did you founded WeConnect? Did that come out of that type of interaction? What does WeConnect do? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so WeConnect was also the idea came out of an event like this. There was basically an local organization, who were having a range of activities in the month of April in 2015. They dedicated the month of April for the refugee cause, and there were 16 different events. So this was basically the kickoff event of this refugee month when I went there, and so everybody kind of had the pitch what they are going to do, and at the end they had the open mic, and there were 150 people at the room. So I went and I said, okay, how many refugees do we have in the room tonight? And there was a silent moment because there was nobody actually. And I said, wow, that's great. We are talking about refugees. We are talking about doing different, 16 different events over the month. The whole month is being dedicated to them. And there is going to be movie screening. There's going to be a theater piece. There's going to be educational programs and so many things. But there isn't any refugee there. That's not how it should work. And so this was basically where I got this feeling that we should bring refugees on board. I mean, if it is for refugees, it should be with refugees as well.
So,
how did you get refugees involved in those early days, Mozamel? How did you reach out to them and bring them into some of these programs?
So at the beginning, it was like we started doing basic research. Where are the refugee camps? We started going to different refugee camps, and the plus point was the languages I was speaking helped me. Well, I was speaking Pashto, which is my native language. People speak it in Afghanistan, and I was speaking Persian and Urdu. So I was able to communicate with 3 or 4 people from 3 or 4 countries, and then so we started going there and meeting people and asking them what they are interested in and what they would like to do, and so we basically started according to what they needed and what they wanted.
What kinds of social activities do you organize to sort of get the refugee population and the local population to learn more about each other?
So the basically we have weekly events and we have monthly events. In the weekly events, we basically collect like what the events are around. Sometimes they're around food, sometimes they're around music, sometimes there is something about education or concerts or any other things that we think that these are the kind of events where you probably don't need to pay or there's any other kind of restriction. So we went, that's one of the things that we collect. And the other thing is that we have this meet and greet events, we call it, where we, before that, we kind of have like, we started a kind of, we call it buddy system, which is like bringing a local and a refugee together via their common interest and passions. So before that, we give a questionnaire to the local and a questionnaire to the refugee who's interested, looking for anything, and they put what they are looking for. And on the other side is the same done. And then we see that who is a potential match and who could be the buddy. So then we organize a monthly event, which is called the meet and greet. And we bring, in this meet and greet, it's improvised. Like we sometimes have music, we cook together in it, or we just simply play. And at the end, we also do the matching. We say, hey, like John is going to be a buddy with Ahmed or Muhammad or somebody.
So do you find that I mean, you talked earlier on about the language issues. I mean, do you find that there's been more of an integration of cultures in that respect, or an isolation of cultures?
Well, I think it's an integration thing. Of course, language is an issue, but basically whoever comes speaks some sort of a little bit English, and this is what also we see in the questionnaire already, that who is speaking what language and what would be like. Let's suppose there is a local person who is ready to teach, and the other person is who is looking for the language. Of course, at the beginning it's a little bit difficult, but we kind of take care of it.
Do you get cooperation from government and schools and universities?
So far, not. We actually got a scholarship from a local NGO. It's called the Social Impact Labs. They promote social entrepreneurs. So we got this co-working space from them, and they're basically the mentors, and they coach us in developing more. But we don't have any kind of like the financial side support but of course we have many volunteers who are helping us with many things in terms of technology or logistics or other things.
Can you tell us a little bit about Hotel Utopia? What is that?
Hotel Utopia was actually before WeConnect. I met 4 German women, and they had this idea that if we build a hotel where we give the feeling to the refugees to be hosts instead of being guests. So this would be one of the things, that we would provide them a kind of job, and also we will train them in the direction of hospitality and gastronomy. So that is, up to now, we are more like, we have we don't have the physical hotel, but the concept and everything is ready. We have 2 partners. Basically, there's already one hotel like this which is working. It's called Hotel Magdas in Austria. So we are also cooperating with them in terms of getting the blueprint and seeing if it's how we can collaborate and see. For that.
One last question I've got. I mean, obviously, you mentioned you don't get a lot of government. You get some grants right now. Is there a way that governments could help, or is there a message that you give to governments about working with refugees?
Well, of course, I mean, if the government wants, the way we have been working so far, the government is always talking about this integration and bringing people together and understanding the culture and this thing. I think that's how it's done. And if they support us in terms of providing, making it easier for us, providing us the financial support, also expertise technology-wise, and helping us to see if this thing is working out and scale it on national level or international level, that would be what we would call the government for.
Well, Mozamel, thank you so much for joining us. I believe it's probably about 9 o'clock your time now, 8:45. If I'm correct.
Yeah, almost.
And I know my Europe. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on being this week's Peace Fund Hero of the Week. And I commend you on your journey, and I hope you continue it. And I hope people actually do integrate more than actually segregate, because I think that can cause more problems in the future. So, Mozamel, thank you for joining us this morning on Peace Fund Radio.
Thank you very much as well, and it was an honor to be on the show and to be the hero. Thanks a lot, and have a nice time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too. So, I mean, it's interesting. He was talking about technology. You know how technology has a great. We've talked about teaching people, and that's why I think teaching people at a young age. I didn't talk to him about technology for kids, but I think that it does include when kids are engaged in technology at a younger age, they're actually able to understand what they're being taught at a better age.
And what I really like too about what his organization does, and again you can find it at WeConnect.Berlin, is that yes, technology and social media are used for those initial connections, but once those connections are made, then it's actually that human interaction of sharing sports, sharing food, sharing arts and entertainment, whatever it is.
Well,
that's
bringing technology and what we talked about before, the face-to-face together, which I think that's what
Fantastic.
You have to do, is not just segregate one from the other. It's integrate. It's the same thing as refugees coming into another country or people migrating to another country, rather than isolating themselves in their own communities. They have to be able to integrate into the society and not necessarily push their own views on a society that they're walking into. That's my point of view, and I think by integrating it solves a lot more problems, because you're understanding their culture as well as them understanding yours. So I think that's a very important factor that we should look at. And I think, remember, the United States is going to be taking in refugees as well. That's not so. I mean, this type of program is not a bad idea for somebody else to think of doing in the United States. If anybody out there is in an area like that, that's not a bad way to actually connect with people and make an integration happen, therefore making more productive members of society rather than isolating people in different communities. John, do you have anything else? Again, we're getting kind of low in the show.
I do. We'll talk more about this next week when we have a little bit more time. But Reboot for Youth, who we had on our show back on December 16th, is helping Kimberly Moore and Lori Oppenheimer with their Adopt a Light initiative, which is happening right now in El Salvador. They came on the show on December 23rd to talk about that. Those guys recently were putting together 80 computers for a school in Liberia, and made the time, and then they're getting ready to do 20 more for a school in Uganda, and they made and found the time to put together some computers for the Kimberly Moore Foundation to send to her. We'll have some more information about it next week, but for now you can go to facebook.com/rebootforyouth and read their post and actually see some pictures of Kimberly and Lori. This all just happened just within the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I was so excited when I heard that, because I mean, Lori's going back soon, and she wants to be able to take the stuff with her that she's been promised, or that we promised that we would get it. And in actual fact, we have had also books donated as well. I want to give a shout out to Renee Nazota from Storage Wars, who supplied 5,000 grade 1 to grade 2 books to them to take back to El Salvador, as well as you have the other organization. I think we have 2 or 3 others that have been.
We do.
Trying
We
to get
have
books to
Harper
them.
and Maggie, who are ages 10 and 12. They were 7 and 9 when they started booksinablanket.com, and they are sending some books, blankets, toys, and other materials down there for Kimberly for the kids as well.
Well, Loda, thank you for joining us this morning. That was impromptu. You walked in to make a comment, and I snagged you for the entire show. Ethan, do you mind that? No, he's kind of happy about it, I suppose.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. John, thank you for bringing us all that information this morning. Again, to
my honor as always.
Bev Shahara. And all of you out there, remember, you can sponsor a Peace Fund Radio episode for a loved one, somebody's birthday, a group that you might want to do. We would actually be able to give them a shout-out on the radio show, so you'd actually be giving them a little joy and somebody else a little joy, but also helping us bring messages around the world of all the stuff that is important that we do to actually, we believe, further the lives of children everywhere. In closing, I would like to just say a quote by Keith Kruger. It is important to remember that educational software, like textbooks, is only one tool in the learning process. Neither can be a substitute for well-trained teachers, leadership, and parental involvement. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier. We'll definitely be here next week.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.